results from power inequalities that are based on gender roles.
Jammeh Sidibe noted that the government has ratified the international instruments protecting women. It is now the task of all to join forces in domesticating these laws. She urged the participants to translate the knowledge gained, moving from lip service to action in ensuring zero tolerance to gender-based violence.
Please think about your sister, think about your daughter, think about your mother, think about your aunt. I think these are very important issues.
In her conclusion, Madam Jammeh Sidibe said ending gender-based violence needs holistic approach, courage from all, emphasizing that Women's Bureau will stand by the network in this noble crusade. Gender-based violence is a local and international concern. Therefore, feminists are not relenting in their march in ensuring that the country is free from violence against women and girls, men and boys. For GRTS News, I am Fatoumata Simaha.
That story by Fatoumata Simaha takes us to our first break, but we'll be back with news from outside the Gambia. Stay tuned.
Gambia, Domane, Bentum Reume Ote, the Gambia Radio and Television Services, GRTS. GRTS Staff Association, Italy. His Excellency the President, Chair Professor Al-Haji Dr. Yahya AJJ Jammeh, no fast Kane Sumbu, Jingadlum Banquet Dinner, a grand dance with a difference. Bufikeja Amsufi Muse Amsach, on the 23rd of May, and on the 24th of May 2014, Stediki Penchami Hall, featuring the now happening Queen of Malach, Titi Safnepa, Titi, Tamane Titi, Pare Rajahe Penchami Hall. You've never seen her on stage like this before. Titi, by popular demand, Dipari Joy Mostoli, Anak Aindanan artist Fijibi Reumi, tickets, Gala, Platinum, $60,000, Diamond, $50,000, Gold, $40,000, and the individual, $1,000. Grand dance ticket, $500 and $300 flat. For all reservations, please call 991-199-203-1850-682-9536. Sunyureu, Gambia.
Welcome back. Mali has declared 3 days of national mourning after 40 soldiers were killed in clashes with Tuareg rebels in the northern town of Kidal. The MNLA and its affiliates now claim to be in control of several other towns in the north. Meanwhile, the government in Bamako is in the state of shock and has called for calm. They are calling on the French and UN forces to intervene to stop the rebel advance. We have more in this report.
A few days ago, Malian soldiers in Kidal could march proudly beside the country's Prime Minister, Moussa Mara. On Wednesday, however, these troops were routed from the city by fighters belonging to a coalition of armed groups: the National Movement for the Liberation of Azawad, the High Council for the Unity of Azawad, and the Arab Movement of Azawad. Together, these groups controlled nearly the whole of Kidal. They inflicted a crushing defeat on Malian troops, despite reinforcements totaling some 1,500 men trained under European supervision. We expect negotiations to begin immediately. We expect the international community to work together to reach a political agreement which respects all parties and pays homage to all the victims. We are also willing to take part in the fight against terrorism. Now in control of Kidal, the MNLA and its allies have launched an offensive in the north, capturing several large towns. Tuareg rebels say they have captured 70 Malian soldiers, following a battle in which nearly 40 Malian soldiers died and at least 50 others were wounded. On Friday, President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta declared 3 days of national mourning, urging people to remain calm. He also called for a ceasefire. In light of the seriousness of the situation, all citizens must remain vigilant and stand behind the authorities. The government requests that every Malian remain calm, act responsibly, and not confuse the issues. The call for the ceasefire came just as the Malian press attempted to explain the defeat of the Malian army as due to the lack of support by French and UN forces. There are concerns that such finger-pointing is liable to raise doubts among Malians about the strength of their allies' commitment to resolving the crisis.
The army in Thailand has announced its takeover of the government after talks with political parties failed to produce any positive outcome on how to end crisis that has gripped the country. Also, more than a dozen Ukrainian soldiers have been killed after local self-defense forces launched an ambush on their convoy in the town of Lugansk in the east of the country. And thousands of police officers have gone on strike in Brazil barely 2 weeks before the Football World Cup. We have more on these and other stories in this CFI report.
The head of Thailand's military has announced a coup d'etat. The announcement was made on Thursday, 2 days after he imposed martial law and summoned the country's rival political factions to a meeting, with the aim of ending more than 6 months of political turmoil. Those talks were inconclusive, however, with neither side willing to compromise. Army Chief General Prayuth Chan-o-cha said he therefore had no choice but to take control of the government and restore order. At least 14 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed in 2 attacks by pro-Russian separatists. The attacks occurred last night near the cities of Lugansk and Donetsk in the country's east. The 2 cities are controlled by pro-Russian separatists. They were the deadliest attacks since Ukraine launched a military operation April 13th to retake its eastern region. Presidential elections in Ukraine are to be held this Sunday. The separatists have promised to disrupt the poll. A terrorist attack in the Xinjiang region of western China has killed at least 31 people and injured more than 90. Chinese media reported that 2 vehicles crashed into a busy outdoor market in the city of Urumqi. One of the vehicles exploded. The attackers also threw explosives into the crowd. The attack occurred soon after a court in Urumqi sentenced 39 people to prison for having posted videos which the court said encouraged terrorism. The government blames the attack on Uyghur separatists. Xinjiang is home to the Muslim Uyghur, who complain that Beijing's development of the region is threatening their traditions. With less than a month before the opening of the World Cup in Brazil, the country's business capital, Sao Paulo, is in havoc. On Tuesday, bus drivers called a 24-hour strike, abandoning their vehicles in the street, causing more than 250 kilometers of gridlock. They were succeeded on Wednesday by civil police, who called their own 24-hour strike. Police are demanding an 80% rise in pay. Only Brazil's civil police, who deal with criminal inquiries, are taking part. Federal and military police say they will wait until after the Cup.
Russia has threatened to veto a draft UN Security Council resolution drawn up by France to refer Damascus to the International Criminal Court for alleged crimes against humanity. The Russians urge that such a resolution would be counterproductive to joint efforts to end the Syrian crisis. Meanwhile, government forces have continued to advance deeper into rebel-held territory on the outskirts of the capital, Damascus. We had details in this report.
Before the vote by the UN Security Council on the draft resolution drawn up by France proposing to go to the International Criminal Court for crimes committed in Syria, Russia announced that it would veto the move.
The fact that the resolution is going to vote, we regard as simply a publicity stunt, which will have a detrimental effect, unfortunately, on our joint efforts in trying to resolve politically the crisis in Syria.
A position that Bashar al-Assad's regime is keen to take advantage of. As the disputed June 3rd presidential elections approach, official cameras were exceptionally allowed to accompany the government forces on the ground. According to the commentator, they are cleaning up the last remaining pockets of resistance controlled by the terrorists, meaning rebels, in the East Ghouta quarter of Damascus. This is the suburb that the regime's forces lost to rebels last week. Government forces are also advancing in the Aleppo region, where the army retook control of the central prison, which had been in rebel hands for 13 months. Aleppo, where Dutch television succeeded in filming the way people live in neighborhoods which have so far been spared by Assad's forces, although bombings and snipers remain a constant threat.
Barrels of explosives, and no water, no electricity, nothing. Life has disappeared. Look.